half hour.
Hello, kiddies. Welcome to Gags from the Crypt.
Hello, boils and ghouls. Welcome to episode 164 of Dads from the Crypt. My name is Jason. Tonight, I'm joined by Jody.
I'm still laughing because when the intro kicked in, Mondo was in the middle of a rant about Intel. He was like, fucking Intel, and then da-da-da.
Well, Jason made a comment that he can only process so much. So I said he's like an Intel Celeron processor. And then I said, fuck Intel for trying to convince us that Celeron was the future. Those processors sucked.
You were right in the middle of the rant, and then the theme popped up.
Right. And then we can see each other while the intro is going, and I can just all I see is the top of Jody's head bobbing up and down as he's trying
all I can see is the video. So it just like it just went blank.
Same here.
Time for the song. Excellent. Great way to start.
We also have Mondo.
Hi. I am also a fan of Intel nowadays, just saying. Like their processors are pretty solid nowadays, but back in '98 when they're trying to sell me on the Celeron bullshit, we knew better.
Let's talk more about 90s technology since that's a little apropos of this week's episode.
That's right.
Do you guys remember the old like DOS games, the old Lucasfilm games, like Full Throttle? And do you remember it used to go the speed of the game was based on your processor? So if you install that at the time, like on a more modern computer, when I say more modern computer, folks, I'm talking Windows 98 with a Pentium 4, the game would go so fast it was unplayable.
Right.
That's awesome.
Oh, fun 90s technology.
No, I was all about like Dark Forces and Civ like 2 and 3.
Our good friend Fun Aunt Whitney is on her way to London right now, and she said she sat on the plane and the guy next to her busted his laptop open and started playing Civilization on it. Nice. I'm like, that's rad.
Well, she's working on the development of the marketing team for the new Civilization coming out soon. So,
are you allowed to say that on the podcast?
Sure. I mean, everyone knows there's a new Civ game coming out. It's been announced, and she works for that same company, so it's not a huge stretch.
Well, while you're at it, Jason, let's go ahead and give her home address and a list of her fears.
Yeah, Whitney always has a good, fun travel story. Like if you listen to, I think one of our Trios of Horror episodes, probably one of the most insane travel stories I've ever heard of. So I'm not going to tell it on this episode, but it's a good one.
I don't know if I even know what you're talking about, so I'll have you just mention it. I probably know, but just mention it off air.
I'll tell you off air. Let's just say there's certain things you cannot bring from one country to another.
Oh, I know exactly what story this is.
100%. I know exactly what you're talking about. I remember when it happened and the messages were coming in. What do I do?
Well, that settles that. Yeah, what do you do? I don't know. I've never been in this situation before.
But the best was when other people had like stories about finding other items as such in random places. So
yeah, if you want a good laugh, the TSA account on Instagram is golden. Really? They make dad jokes all the time, but they show the stuff people try to get through, like their carry on. It's like, are you guys fucking stupid? I don't know, man. Like I have a real hard time at the airport sometimes because I go through TSA pre-check because I travel all the time for work and I don't want to take my shit out of my bag. And there's so many people that I'm standing behind them because it's their 5th attempt to go through the metal detector because they don't realize when they say empty all your pockets. Oh, you even mean my phone? Yes. In your pockets. Everything. Is that involved in the word everything? Then yes, put it in the fucking bin or in your bag. So I get really frustrated with that because I feel like if you're TSA pre-check, you probably travel enough to have done this once or twice.
Right.
And I get it. It'll happen where someone leaves their belt on and the belt buckle goes off. I don't even care. I'm like, yeah, that happens. But you could be cool like me and get a plastic belt. I have a plastic belt buckle now.
Just for
shit.
For flying.
Never goes off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Travel tips, guys. Travel tips. Before I could rant for hours about my travel experiences, but Well, I can tell you about the guy that sat next. So my flight to Chicago for my best friend's 40th was the worst flight I've ever had in my life. I got a Southwest Airlines, and by the way, I'm so happy they're going to assign seating because I got A group. My wife forgot to check in; she got C group. So I'm like, don't worry, I'll just go to the. I'll grab the last row in the plane, and you can have. I'll just sit in the middle, and whoever wants whichever seat, I'll save the other one for you. And this guy comes over, and he's like, "Can we take it?" And I said, "Yeah, man, no, go ahead." Like I said, "Which do you want, aisle or things?" He picks window, and he goes, "Well, man, you're lucky." I said, "Why?" He goes, "Because you get to sit next to me." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's funny. Okay, whatever. Super cool, right?" We start shooting the shit. We work on the same industry, and it's cool. Like I'm talking to the guy, and it's cool. He puts his movie on, I put my movie on, and to start the story off, I was trying to watch Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, which I totally forgot as a plane destruction scene in it too, which I usually don't like watching airplanes. But
which is actually getting a 4K remaster.
Oh shit! I'll definitely pick that up. But
well, I'm sure it's gonna be part of a box set, so you have to buy all of them. But
that's fine.
Everyone's gonna buy all.
I'll buy them all.
Yeah.
In a 3.5 hour flight to Chicago, I got through 45 minutes of this movie. Because the first thing the guy does is he orders a Jack and Coke when they come around for drinks. I don't care, dude. It's 6 a.m. Yeah, sure, whatever. But it's the wild, wild west. If you're at the airport, dude, slam those Bloody Marys. I don't care. If you're on an airplane, I don't care. So he then finds out he can't pay because he can't activate his Chime card, which sounds like it's piss poor planning at this point, right? I think he's doing this on purpose at this point. And then he refuses to pay for the $8 Wi-Fi. So flight attendant's like, you know what? Don't even worry about it. It's fine. It's on me. Super cool. Then I'm watching my movie, and he keeps trying to talk to me. I keep putting my earphones fucking back in. And then the flight attendant comes back, and he orders another drink. And he goes, "But I can't pay you." And she goes, "I'll just give it to you," because she's just annoyed at this point. Then he orders a third drink. What? He wasn't even asked if he wanted to drink. This time he flagged the flight attendant down to ask for a third drink. No, at this point, you're an asshole. Like like I would be mortified if I couldn't pay for my one drink, much less have the audacity to ask for a second.
Ordering them.
And then he won't stop talking to me. He won't stop talking to me. He's asking me questions about life, but he starts asking me questions about horror movies because he sees I'm watching a horror movie. So I recommended some horror movies and whatever. And then he starts asking me about like, "Oh, what do you want to do in life?" And I'm getting annoyed. But then here's where it takes a turn.
Wait, is Kel sitting on the other side of you?
Kel's sitting on the other side of me. She's sleeping.
Oh, I was like, honey, save me. Start talking to me.
He starts telling these horrible misogyny jokes.
Oh.
And I'm like, bro, just chill, man. Just chill. And no, it wasn't it was not misogyny joke, but it was a stupid sexual joke that wasn't even remotely funny. And I don't mind when comedians do sexual jokes, but I think if that's all you rely on, he said he was a comedian too, by the way. Then it's bottom of it's like lowest common denominator comedy. And then he goes, "Well, you seem like a really good guy. I know who you're voting for. You're voting for Trump."
Oh no!
And I was like, "This is where we're fucking getting. This is where I'm like." I said, absolutely not. He goes, "You're not telling me you're voting for Kamala." I was like, 100% because I'm not a fucking bigot. And I was much nicer in this to him because I had to sit next to him still for another hour and a half. But at this point, all my answers became very short. And he just became increasingly more annoying as the flight went on. And he's trying to talk to Kel, and Kel's asleep. And I'm like, dude, leave her alone. She's sleeping. And to make a long story short, when we were ready to go to the plane, he goes, "What? Am I the worst person you ever sat next to on a plane? Was this the worst experience ever?" I said, "At least you didn't throw up all of yourself." That's all I could say to him. So I was like, at this point, like, I was so just fucking over him and over it. So that's it. That's my travel horror story.
I'm proud you did not put him in the headlock. Let's just say that.
Well, with my job, if I get put on a no-fly list, then I probably will get fired. So
pretty bad problem for you.
You thought about it?
No, I honestly didn't. Oh, that was also the part too. Like I don't have really bad cauliflower ears, but you can see a little bit where they're banged up. And he mentions, "Oh, do you grapple or anything?" I told him I did jiu-jitsu. He goes, "I've always thought about doing it, bro. But there's a bunch of places in my town that do it. But I walked in, there's some girls in there. Like, what if I hurt one of them?" I was like, "Yeah, go try. Like, just go in there and sign up and ask to roll with a girl that you outweigh by 60 pounds, and you just see what happens because you're so much tougher than they are." So I hope he went and did that and someone beat the shit out of him back in his home in Austin. And I forgot his name because it didn't matter. because I don't even want to remember. Oh, the other fun part was, last thing I'll say, he mentioned he's in the same industry as me, and I think he's lying because he claimed that his company did all the surveillance work for the Seminole tribe out of Florida, which is insane because my company did all that work. So he doesn't work for us or work for our integrators. So I'm like, fuck this guy.
All right. Well,
sorry guys, that's 9 minutes of my ranting. If you're still listening to the podcast, bless you.
All right. Well, tonight we're talking about a new movie from Hulu, part of their Huluween releases. We're talking Mr. Crocket. Jody, give us a plot synopsis.
All right. So I just watched this earlier today, and it's so new that there's no Wikipedia. So I'm just going to have to kind of do this from memory here. All right. So our opening scene is a family, a mom, a dad, and a little boy are at the house. Mom has got dinner on the table, and the little boy is watching a VHS of a children's show called Mr. Crocket. It's kind of somewhere between Mr. Rogers and Barney. Like the guy comes out, he's got on like a bow tie and a vest. He dances around and sings songs. And the dad, or I think he's a stepdad.
He's stepdad, yeah.
Yeah, he starts yelling at the kid to come to the table, like, get over here right now. The kid says he eats a few bites and says he's full, and he starts yelling at him and cussing at him and saying, you know, we do so much to provide for you, and just really laying in hard to this kid. And so the mom finally gets frustrated with it, and she walks out of the room. And at that point, the TV starts flickering, and you see like eyes looking out of the little VHS slot, and a hand comes out of the VHS slot, and suddenly Mr. Crocket is in the house, and the kid's delighted that he's there. Mr. Crocket talks to the stepdad, who is, you know, still cussing at him, like, who are you? What are you doing here? And, you know, he's like, oh, no, don't use that language. And then he says something to him, and the chair becomes like this mutant, like monster chair with eyes, kind of like warped Pee-wee's Playhouse Cherry. And he pins him down. And then Mr. Crocket tries to feed him this nasty food, like, okay, if you're going to make him eat the food, I'm going to make you eat the food. And he tries to shove it in his mouth. And when he won't, Mr. Crocket slices the man's stomach open and jams the entire plate into his stomach, jams a chicken into his stomach. Mom comes in and screams. The kid's delighted through all of this, though. Like, nothing phases this kid. This kid is like, hey, it's Mr. Crocket murdering my stepdad. This is great. We're having a great time. Then we meet our main characters, a mom named Summer. And her son Major. And her husband, his dad, has just died after some long fight with some kind of illness. Very popular man. And the kid's just not processing it very much. Like, they're at the funeral home and he just wants to play video games, and mom's really stressed out trying to figure out, you know, how do I take care of this kid? I just lost my spouse. And the kid is a handful. Like, he just is. He's a difficult kid at times. Like, he's not a bad kid, but he's a lot.
A little ADHD, but
yeah. I mean, as a parent, like, I've seen my kids in this same state before. And at some points, like, the mom gets frustrated with him, and I'm like, yes, I am right there with you. I'm frustrated with this kid too. Like, he's not a bad kid. Just like, it's hard to take care of kids sometimes, especially when they're all like wound up.
Mm-hmm.
And she can't get him to calm down. But then suddenly someone puts up like a little lending library type thing out in their front yard, which is not something I ever saw in the 90s. This movie is set in the 90s.
The one thing on IMDb is that, like, those did not start until the early 2000s.
Yeah, no, definitely not something I remember from then. But either way, whatever. Small continuity error. But she walks outside, finds a VHS of the Mr. Crocket tape. And I'm missing stuff. But she finds it, puts it in. It makes him happy. We'll get into what happens from there. Let me see what else at the beginning. There's a lady who tries to, like, warn her, like, go run when he comes. Like a homeless lady talks to,
she is the lady from the opening,
right?
Yeah,
but she's homeless at this point, and she's trying to, like, you know, when he comes, you need to run, you need to get away, and scares the whole family. We do get to see one other time that Mr. Crocket appears. There's a little girl watching the show, and her dad is like, the TV cuts out, We go see her dad, who is passed out in a chair. He's doing drugs. There's a needle in his arm. And Mr. Crocket shows up, and the little girl runs off, and the guy pulls out a gun on Mr. Crocket, and Mr. Crocket says, well, two problems. One is you're something wrong with your gun. And he pulls the trigger and just shoots bubbles out of it all of a sudden. And then Mr. Crocket puts the gun in his mouth. And I thought he was going to fire bullets now, but instead he shoots it and another bubble appears, and the bubble just grows bigger and bigger until Dad's head explodes. And then he takes the little girl off into whatever land with him. And at this point, with the two murders we've seen so far, I'm pretty much on Mr. Crockett's side. I'm like, okay, like this is like a public service at this point. But then again, we see this kid, Major, driving his mom crazy. His mom really is doing her best, but like she finally gets frustrated and yells at him. And that's when Mr. Crocket shows up and takes him off into the other world without killing him, or without killing the mom at this point. But he takes her away. And so the rest of the movie is her trying to figure out what's going on and get her son back. Yeah, that's enough.
Yeah. Thank you, Jody. All right, Mondo, start us off. What did you think of this movie?
I think it's a decent streaming horror film. It had a lot of aspects I really, really enjoyed. I think the Tyler character does an amazing job being creepy as all hell. I love when they finally get to his set and it's like the demented version of Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed that. Some of the CGI took me out of it. The kid's eyes being glossed over with TV static looked so bad that kind of ruined the ending. Not say ruined it, but definitely took me out of the ending. And then I do think some of the things they do, it's kind of weird. And because Jody mentioned it, but he's taking away a child from a drug addicted, abusive father, in with the guise of, hey, we're going to give you this paradise you can live in. Sounds like Christianity, but it's or Catholicism. But he takes, and that almost makes sense to me to an extent, right? Because then you feel like, well, what is he really hurting his children? But then he takes a kid away from a mom who's just like having a bad day.
Yeah,
right.
And I thought that's actually a positive thing, because I thought it really showed that that's when you really realize, oh, he just wants to steal some children. But I think overall, though, there's a lot of inconsistencies in this, just weird little things that didn't kind of add up at the end. And I'm a real big believer in, we talked about it pre-show, guys, style. I'm cool with style over substance, but I think also the style of this was a little bit forced. Like they made an attempt to show you every 90s reference possible, and which is okay. That really doesn't bother me too much. But I think overall, even with the ending, with the way they went about him telling the story about his life and about the kid, like I saw everything that was going to happen from a mile away.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes being predictable is okay when it's going to be a good conclusion to the story. But it was predictable in a way that I was like, I really hope it doesn't go this route. And then it went that route. And even the very, very end of it, they left it open for a potential sequel, obviously, but I really wasn't a fan of the way it ended with, because it was very obvious there. Like when the teacher came to the mom's house at the end, it was very obvious what they were going to do at the ending, and I thought a lot of it was very, very cliche. All that being said, though, I had a good time with the movie. I think it's one of those movies that if you have Hulu, like definitely watch it. It's a fun Halloween watch, but just don't expect it to be world changing or life changing, or it's probably not going to make my top 10.
Yeah. No, I agree with pretty much everything you said. I mean, this is basically like if Mr. Rogers was Freddy Krueger who went after parents instead of kids, but without most of like the charisma, for lack of a better term, of a Freddy Krueger, or like he's trying to use one-liners, but they just aren't very good. And then also in the very first scene, they show him completely. They show his entire shtick. Where like in like Nightmare on Elm Street, they don't show you everything they don't show you Freddy like in plain sight. It's very like, obscured. But they kind of show you the full character. And that might be like his meanest scene, where he's cutting up the stepfather and shoving food in his stomach, which again is a Freddy Krueger thing.
Yeah, it starts off with a bang. Like you think, oh shit, what are we in for here? And I think it actually gets more tepid as the movie goes on.
Yes,
Of
exactly.
course, with the climax in the third act, it does again get a little bit more gruesome. And I honestly I loved the practical puppetry at the very end. I thought that was
that's my
really, really great.
Yeah, I'll say that's my favorite thing about this
Same.
was the chair and the clock and the bird, all great practical puppets. So hats off to the team on that. But yeah, there wasn't much subtlety or like I was like, okay, if they're showing us this much up front, maybe there's like another demon form or something we're gonna get to see to kind of up the ante. But no, it's kind of the same thing over and over and over again. And yeah, there were some weird consistency things, like in the end, not the main character, but the woman who the first woman from the opening scene. Like, I guess she is injured. She goes to the hospital, but again, they don't reunite her with her escaped son till like she's already out and working or something like that. There's just a weird scene like that. Like that doesn't make any continuity or timeline sense. The acting was pretty good. You know, we got some decent people. Mr. Crocket is played by Elvis Nolasco. He's in the show called The Godfather of Harlem. He's also a Spike Lee regular. He was in Clockers back in the early 90s. He was also in the Spike Lee remake of Old Boy, which isn't terrible. It's not great. I mean, the first one is a classic. That's one of my all-time favorites, but the remake's not terrible. The main mom is played by Jerika Hinton. She was in a recently show called Hunters. She was in like 100+ episodes of Grey's Anatomy. That show just won't die. And the other woman, Rhonda, is played by Kristen Lloyd, and she was in like 170 episodes of The Bold and the Beautiful. So we got a lot of up and coming talent. The director, Brandon Espy, he's done a lot of shorts. This is his first feature, and I think that kind of like sums it up. This would make a really good short, like just even like do like the first 10 minutes and the last 10 minutes into like a short film of some sort, an anthology. I think this will go down a lot easier. I just don't think there's enough there, at least from what they had, to expand it into a full movie. But I think as a short, this will play a lot better. Jody?
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, do I get to talk about it too?
You get to recap, and that's it.
I just synopsize. That's what I'm here for. No, I think I'm probably a little more positive on this than the two of you all are just because I like the whole like dark children's show thing, like just in general, like it's a fun concept to me. Like the Banana Splits movie, that does the same thing with the like dark children's show.
That's a fun movie. Real fun movie.
There's a YouTube channel called Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared that yeah, I've got one of the little guys from it, the little red face.
That legit still might be the most terrifying thing I've ever seen in my life.
Super unsettling. Like, I mean, even comedy stuff like Death to Smoochie. Like, I loved that movie. The Robin Williams. It's good. It's good.
Ed Norton.
Ed Norton. Thank you.
The rocket ship cookie scene in that is like my favorite thing in the history of movies, almost.
But so yeah, I like the dark children's show thing. So I was already kind of on board with the whole concept. I do think it kind of ran out of steam, like somewhere along the way. Like after a few good kills, like the first two kills are both good. And again, the parents definitely they deserved it in those scenes. Like they're bad people, and so you're kind of on Mr. Crockett's side in those first couple. But then as it goes on, like it does just kind of get drawn out beyond what the story can hold. And Mondo, you were saying, like eventually you see that he's like just going after other kids. And the mom even says that at one point, like, he's like, you're kidnapping these kids because of bedtimes. Like, it's for like, he just wants to kidnap kids and he's a crazy person.
It's someone trying to use like the littlest thing to justify their actions. And
yeah, it makes sense, but it's just not enough to really like motivate this guy to like come back from hell to like, because it says he's like made a deal with the devil or something like that to have this space. And, they get really into the lore of it all. And there's like what the kids see is like this sunshine with his face on it. And what real is this moon with a dead face on it. Like it's cool stuff, but it's just too much, like too long. Like, even if not a short film, just like a tight, like 70 minutes, like a really like just barely movie length if you just trimmed out some of the fat in the middle. Like the one character, the kid who comes back. That's spoiler. I figured out that was that kid like the first time he showed up on screen.
Right.
Yeah, it was obvious that there was something sus about him.
Right. I mean, when he was like, "Let's go get ice cream," I'm like, "Oh, okay, so he's that kid." Like,
Well, it's suspect, but it's not suspect in a way where you're thinking, "Huh, is that?" It's like right away, you're like, "Oh yeah, it's obvious what they're
it
doing."
is him. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Oh.
I think overall I enjoyed it. I had fun with it. Like I liked enough of it to overlook some of the draggy parts, but it definitely does get kind of weighed down by its own mythology after a while. And the other thing, it's got the same problem that like a haunted doll movie has, like Annabelle or something. Mr. Crockett is creepy from the get-go. Like even like when the kids are watching him on the TV, he looks unhinged the entire time. I don't know any kids that would watch the show and be like, I really like this guy. He seems happy. Kids would watch that show and go, what is wrong with this? This is an upsetting show. Just like no kid is going to carry around Annabelle going like, look at my dolly, like, yeah, haunted doll, throw it away.
We didn't mention this, but I wonder, and I'd be interested to look into this, if the writer or director was inspired because you had, right, when we were kids, at least you had the Cosby Kids and Bill Cosby up there with his magic marker drawing shit. And then years later, we figure out like, he was not a good human being. And I wonder if they took some inspiration for that from this. But do you think you would have liked it more? Because just thinking about it while we're talking about it, I think if they'd have shown him like pulling these kids out of horrible situations, but not showing what he was doing to the parents, and then maybe showing that a little bit later, like the aftermath of him visiting these homes, and then show him getting into kidnapping kids at like you said, late bedtime. I think that might have been a little bit more effective rather than having that shock moment. Like whenever you start a movie off like that, it's if you never get back to that peak of violence, that peak of insanity, it's really tough to keep the audience the rest of the movie because you're waiting for that to happen, then it doesn't, and you feel kind of let down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just,
I think
we were talking about it
in too strong. They came out too strong out the gate.
Well, we're talking about in the before we start recording that like for the same thing for me with Suspiria is that the first 15 minutes are so good and shocking and succinct that the rest of the movie just falls apart as I'm trying to watch it. But again, I haven't seen with the qualifier. I haven't seen the whole movie in like 15 years. Yeah. So I might like it more now. But there's that's a movie where like Ghost Ship has an amazing opening first couple minutes, and then the rest of it just doesn't live up to that. Blessing and the curse, I guess, for that movie, because no one, if you didn't have that opening scene, and at least in Ghost Ship, no one would remember that movie.
But yeah, I think it goes on a little too long, and it gets a little stale after a while. But overall, I enjoyed enough of it.
Yeah, and actually, I think the kid acting was actually pretty good overall because I did feel for all those kids.
Yeah,
with the shitty parents, like I was having like an emotional reaction to those situations.
And to the end, when they're having the kids chase the protagonist in a game of hide and seek where they're biting at her, that was probably the weakest moment when it came to the kids acting. But it was so brief that it didn't really matter. Like if that makes sense. Like it wasn't a focus. It wasn't. And no offense to them, because I never blame the kids when they're put in movies and don't act well, because I couldn't do it. Like they do a better job than I could, but I equated to, in the Phantom Menace where you needed this little kid to help be a major plot point in the movie. And just, unfortunately, it was a child actor who should not have been put into that role. Not his fault. And it's really sad when you see what has happened to his life because of that role. But in that case, they needed that child actor to really drive the plot and drive the movie. Where in this, the child actors were there just as kind of like accompaniments, but it's okay because they're always, even when they weren't that great on screen, it didn't take away from anything. It didn't stand out like a sore thumb or anything.
Yeah, and I know the budget on this couldn't have been that big, but like again, spoilers for the very ending is that Mr. Crocket has like a magic marker that he uses to like create like whatever he wants. And at one point, the mom gets a hold of the marker, and that's how they escape. I'm like, how cool would it have been if she would have like drawn a bomb or something, or like you could do anything you want with this marker. and they don't really use it as with it for anything imaginative.
It's also a thing they do too in a lot of movies, but I don't love, where you have all these kids that have been kidnapped, but it's her love that gets the kid out, because like everyone loves their kids. Now I get it, like the poor girl that had the heroin addicted father. Also, if I can talk about that scene, it was obvious the guy was a drug addict. Like, you don't have to show me the needle in the arm. I think at that point you're hitting me over the head with it. Whereas like, I've known junkies. You know what junkies try to do? They try to hide that shit from as many people as possible. I think it would have been much better if it had been very subtle that he was a junkie.
For some reason, Alphas wasn't paying attention. I didn't see the needle in the arm.
Yeah,
until,
it was still in
there.
the arm. And they zoomed in on it.
Well, then he tells her to go to her room and don't open the door until I tell you to. And she's like crying. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
They could have done something where he's getting ready to shoot up when she comes out of her room. I think that'd been more effective than, and you can do that in movies. There's a famous movie, Blood In, Blood Out. It's the ultimate Cholo movie. If you're Mexican, you've seen it. Any Mexican listening to this right now is like, oh yeah, Blood In, Blood Out. Owned by Disney. I think it's on Max now. It's a great movie though. And there's a scene where, spoilers, somebody hasn't seen the movie that came out 30 years ago, but it's a scene where a young kid dies and they find him with a heroin needle in it. But it makes sense because he was trying to be like his older brother, and his older brother was doing heroin. So he takes a needle and you see him stabbing himself. So it's okay. It makes sense because even though it wasn't subtle, it wasn't supposed to be subtle. This, I felt like they hit us over the head with the fact this guy's a drug addict. And, even like I know neither of you have seen The Substance yet, right?
No,
I haven't yet. No.
And I won't get into any spoiler territory on that, but towards the end of the movie, as things happen, they keep showing you these flashbacks of earlier in the movie. And it's actually the only thing I didn't like in that movie, because I felt like they were hitting me over the head with something instead of letting it just be subtle, letting my brain kind of figure it out for myself. And that's just, I don't know. A lot of movies do it. And maybe it's just because our attention span is lower than it once was. That could be that, but to me, it's just like, I'd rather miss the point and then have to go back and watch it again than get hit over the head with it.
I remember hearing somewhere recently, I don't remember what I was listening to, but it was talking about how with Netflix movies and documentaries, now they have been told, like, they have a mandate from the streaming company that like you're going to be a second screen. And so you have to spell things out for people because they're only half paying attention. And so that's why a lot of these streaming movies are so like obvious, because they know you're on your phone while you're watching it.
Or they figure that like you might stop the movie like with around the hour point and finish it the next day. So anything that happened in the first hour, you need to repeat in the second hour because you might have forgotten.
It's kind of funny though, because you'll see that in the movies, right? And like you mentioned, Jody, maybe that's a mandate, but then they'll have episodic television where you'll start the second season and it's been a year since the first season and you won't get a recap. It's like, and their expectation is you're going to remember what happened a year ago.
Right.
And even, recently we did our review on Terrifier 3. They don't go back and beat you over the head with like what happened in Terrifier 2. There's an expectation that you watch that movie if you want to. Like, you can watch Terrifier 3 without I've ever seen Terrifier 2. I still think it's an enjoyable film, but if you've seen 2, it's like, oh, cool. All these little pieces now are adding up, and I like that because it rewards the watcher. It rewards you for paying attention, but I also get that's a very, very interesting revelation about Netflix and about streaming services, because that makes
total sense. You're not paying attention. Yeah.
It's well, so even I'm a pro wrestling fan, so AEW and WWE both do now. When they go to commercial, they do a picture-in-picture of the ad and the wrestling. And they're asking Dave Meltzer, who's a super respected wrestling journalist, wouldn't the ad companies get mad at this because they're paying for ad space? And he goes, no, because the idea is by putting the wrestling in the corner, people won't change the channel and won't immediately change the channel because they're not getting entertainment they want to get. And that just kind of, it's where we're going. It's where we're going in the world, and it's okay. But it doesn't mean I have to like it. But I can understand it and be okay with it, but I don't have to love it.
Yeah, I think if this movie had been a little more patient with things, it could have been a better, like, save some more for the later part of the movie. Like, I needed to see Mr. Crocket being a little more like sunshine and cheery. Like,
yes.
Why do the kids love him? What is so great about him? And I need to see like that it helps You know, like the kids are like really into him and they're happy because generally when they're watching the show in this, they're just like zoned out. And I know kids do that when they watch stuff, but also like the whole point is they're willing to like leave their family for this dude. So like you need to see him as like this lovable character. He's always scary though. Like,
Right.
and I think if they had just kind of like built up, and then started getting sinister as it went, and then we get the murders and everything, like I think that would have been better than just straight off like, look how scary this guy is. Okay, he's never going to be this scary ever again, but he's still going to be like unpleasant for
even if they did. Sorry, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, like I said, in the opening scene, they show him completely without any like intrigue or anything, and it's just kind of like, okay, we know we've seen everything this character is,
right. And I like the opening scene, but there's just nowhere to go with him after that.
If it was that scene alone, and like again as a short film, okay, great, but then you have to expand that into a whole movie, and it just doesn't kind of leave you much.
The opening scene makes like, okay, we're going to some batshit crazy places, but the rest of the movie is way tamer than the opening scene. And to your point, Jody, I think it'd be really great if they did that. If they had like maybe the first act, you just see this beloved children character, but every now and again he does something weird that you're kind of thinking like, that's a little odd. And then that eventually you realize why. I think that would have been a much more subtle way and a much more creepier way to get to where they got to.
Well, and
so
like
what you're saying is you prefer the Nightmare on Elm Street remake where they try to make you think Freddy Krueger is innocent.
How much time do we have on this podcast? Because that's what pissed me off most about that fucking remake. It's like if your parents came to you and like, Jason, we don't want to tell you that you're like, Mom, Dad, I'm having nightmares about this creepy janitor. And they were like, hey, we just got to tell you, we think he might have been molesting you and your friends. I don't think your initial reaction would be like, you're lying. I'm going to go prove his innocence. That pissed me off so much. God bless Jackie Earl Haley. Did the best he could with a terrible script. And you want to know what? There's been rumblings again about them rebooting the franchise. And I hope like they will give give that shit to the who did Stranger Things? The last season was basically a love letter to Nightmare on Elm Street. Give them the fucking rights and let them do their thing, and give Jackie Earl Haley another shot. I'm down. Like, do it.
I heard at one point Mike Flanagan said he'd be interested in taking the series, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'd like to see what he do.
I think
if Mike Flanagan wanted to do,
and he'd do anything.
Yeah, if you wanted to do Sex in the City, I'd watch it. Like,
and I know at one point Elijah Wood's company was trying to get the rights. I don't know if that ever happened. There was a because the anniversary recently, Robert Englund was saying that like he wouldn't do the character physically. He just can't anymore. But he would love to do like an animated version of where he could like do the voice.
Oh, yeah.
Someone had a cool idea too, where they could, with the CGI technology of today, they could do like a live action Freddy Krueger, but CGI Robert Englund's face over it, like his version of the makeup. But what made Robert Englund Freddy wasn't so much the face; it was the way he moved his body.
Yeah.
But I would say at this point, if I was going to peg one person to do that role, Jackie Earle Haley could do it, but if you wanted someone with that swagger, fucking David Howard Thornton. I think he would play that role perfectly because he definitely takes some cues from Freddy with his portrayal of art.
The physical comedy is what David Howard Thornton's so good at in the Terrifier.
And then actually one of the names that's been floated around on like mock trailers sometimes or mock posters is DJ Quells.
Oh, I think he'd be good, especially if they went like young Freddy.
Yeah,
I think he'd actually be really good. He's an underrated actor. He's good at everything.
I keep saying that. Yeah.
Did you ever see Malibu's Most Wanted?
A long time ago,
where he went back to high school and they basically told him like, you need to beat the shit out of someone. I think it was this movie where he's telling somebody, you need to beat the shit out of someone to know who you are. So he basically beats up jocks like every day, but no one ever sees it, so he never gets like no one ever notices what he's doing. Something like that. It's been a long time.
All right. Anything else on this movie, or are we beating the dead horse?
As many complaints I've had about it, I still think it's a super enjoyable
Halloween
watch.
It's not unwatchable.
No, it's fun to throw on. So for you guys with younger children, is this something you think your kids would enjoy, or you could show to your kids?
I mean,
Not
my
mine.
kids who were my kids who are into horror, like who we watch R-rated movies together. This is definitely one that I thought like, I think they kind of like this.
Yeah. Actually, this would be an interesting one for teenagers to watch. And then, then again, they might not get the whole '90s Mr. Rogers TV stuff, but
my kids watch
they also they also grew up with Blue's Clues, like stuff like that. So I think they get that piece of it. Because sometimes I wonder if when I see a movie like this, maybe we're just not the target audience, and that's okay. But although I do think it was kind of aimed towards parents. I think
it's aimed towards parents, especially with the '90s stuff. So yeah.
All I'm thinking of, I'm watching this, like if that dude came through my TV, I'd fuck that dude up.
Yeah.
All right, let's do our episode or movie rating out of 5. 5 being the best, 0 being the worst. Mondo starts off
2.5, right smack dab in the middle. Enjoyable. I don't feel like you have to go out of your way to see it. If it's something like if you haven't seen like Long Legs or Immaculate or The Substance, put this one towards the bottom of your list. But as like a fun popcorn film, yeah, man, 2.5 is not a bad score. Like, give it a shot.
It's October. You're watching scary stuff anyway.
Yeah,
it's a fun one to throw on.
All right, Jody.
If this came out in February, I wouldn't be as loving towards it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'm gonna go just slightly higher. I'm gonna give this one a 3 out of 5.
I'm with Mondo on this one, 2.5, and I'm probably giving even a half point for the puppetry effects.
Yeah, no, definitely. The puppetry effects were so much fun. That was like because even the chair they showed was straight out of Pee-wee's Playhouse, and there was, and to the credit of people that made this movie, there's a lot of interesting stuff they put in, and they really, the other piece too is I want to kind of point out that we're not the right group to point this out, but they really it was really a lot of I mentioned, was a director a person of color? Or the writer?
I know one of the writers was. I'm not sure about the director.
Because I would also really love someone's review of this who a part of that group, that community, because they might have seen it different than we have. And I never want to discount that. And I want to say we're also 3 fucking older cis male, white passing and European guys. So like we might not have gotten out of it what other people might have gotten out of it.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's time for a shout out.
Hi, this is Joe Dante, and you're listening to Dads from the Crypt.
Joe!
It's insane that exists.
Yeah.
Joe. Speaking of great puppetry effects,
is this real life?
All right, Mondo, give us your song of the day.
All right. So I was trying to find a band and I can't remember what it was, but I discovered them during the pandemic. And it was a metal artist who did an album with his son. And all they did was sing about his favorite dinosaurs. And I thought that was a cool idea. I could not find that. But so I had to pick another band that is also it's a grindcore band from Connecticut that's fronted by a 9-year-old. And granted, their album came out in 2021. And, the 9-year-old writes the lyrics and is the singer, and it's actually pretty good.
Is the rest of the band children, or are they like grown-ups?
They're grown-ups, like family.
Okay.
I can't remember. They're called Animal School Bus.
All right.
The album is called Going to Grandma's House! ! They call themselves Connecticut Elementary School Girl Fronted Grindcore.
Nice.
And the song I want to pick off this is called it's the longest song they do, which is a minute and 30 seconds long. If you guys know about grindcore, I think Napalm Death had the famous song that was like 3 seconds long with those like bleh! Next song. But the song I love is called Everyone Had Mullets in the 80s. And please allow me to read you these lyrics. Can we talk about Full House and also Fuller House? DJ is my favorite, and so is Uncle Jesse when he had a mullet. Everyone had mullets in the 80s, even my dad. I really love school. I'm in 4th grade. My favorite subject is math. I read at level R, but I still like math the best. Math. The only thing about school is no one knows what grindcore is. I love it. I love when I love this whole like Let's get the family involved and make some fucking music. So check it out, guys. I don't know if they're on Apple Music or not. Like, I bought the album on Bandcamp like 4 years ago or a few years ago. But you can find them on Bandcamp at animalschoolbus.bandcamp.com. And their record is Going to Grammy's House. And just buy it. It's $5. Support a 9-year-old. Like, she's gonna use that to buy some colored pencils. Well, I guess she's in 4th grade then, so she'd be in 7th grade now. She's gonna buy like a book cover if you buy her album. So. Or maybe drugs. Do kids in 7th grade do drugs nowadays? I don't know.
Sure, some do.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I'm depressed.
Thank you, Mondo. That sounds like very unique.
They've done there's a grindcore band called, I think it's called Caninus, where the guy would give he had 2 pit bulls, and they played tug of war all the time, and the lyrics for all the songs were him recording the pit bulls fighting over a toy.
Nice.
And then there was a band called Hate Beak, where the lead singer was a parrot.
Okay.
I'm telling you, man, like, I'm for it. Like, be creative. Metalheads we take ourselves too. I don't take myself seriously, but so many of people in the genre take themselves so seriously. So it's really fun when you see bands step outside of that box and just be okay with like being out there. I always talk back to our Ross Sewage, who Jody loved because his name on Twitter was She Ross, Princess of Power.
Yeah,
the guy's the bassist for Exhumed and Impaled and Ludacra, has this resume of these extreme metal bands and amazing bands he's played with. Yet, you know what? It's Halloween. He's gonna cross dress and have his girlfriend dress up like a man. He doesn't care. Like, he's gonna kiss other dudes on stage. He doesn't give a shit. Like, he is who he is. And I love that when anybody inside this genre is supposed to be so serious doesn't have to take themselves too seriously. Chuck Schuldiner from Death used to always do shirts with kitty cats on them. And I hate the fact I said kitty cats and not cats, by the way. Well, it's because I have one cat left, and I call her, she's fucking like 15, but I still call her kitty cat because she's tiny. But she's also a murderer. She fucking goes out and kills everything. But he always do that because he wanted to break the stigma that people in death metal are these evil people. Then you have George Fisher, like, going out, and Corpse Grinder from Cannibal Corpse going out and winning toys and donating toys at children's hospitals. And most of us metalheads are just like the softest motherfuckers ever. Like, we think we're tough. We're not. We're just softies.
It's the same with horror fans.
Right.
Yeah, it really is, man. It really is. And I think it's a reason why sometimes you meet some of the best people in these niche kind of communities, or these counterculture communities, because I think we have a little bit more kindness sometimes, because we were all geeks growing up. We were all nerds. We probably had to deal with someone being, well, I'm just going to be honest. I was 260 pounds and a power lifter and played football and wrestled. So I didn't get really picked on very much in high school, but I know people fucking gave me shit sometimes for my hobbies and the things I love to do that were nerdy. So I think that it attracts a certain type of person. I think we have, and again, like, I'm not generalizing everybody, but I think a lot of us have a different level of empathy because we remember how we were treated sometimes, and we want other people to not have that experience. Yeah. So it's a really cool culture, man. Like, I don't think I could find 3 metalheads or 2 other metalheads on the internet that I want to do a podcast with. So, but I found 2 horror guys that I'm super stoked to call friends.
Oh, shucks. All right, Jody, give us some horror news.
All right. We just recorded recently, a little behind the scenes, so I don't have a ton of stuff, but I do want to mention some releases because it's October and everyone's looking for something to watch. So one movie that Mondo was talking about earlier, I think maybe before we started recording, Stream just came out on Amazon and other digital outlets. It's from the same team who made the Terrifier movies. Different director, but like a lot of the same people are involved. Damien Leone's involved. He's doing the effects and makeup. It's got this insane cast. You got Tony Todd, Jeffrey Combs, Danielle Harris, Dee Wallace, Felissa Rose, Daniel Roebuck, like all of these horror icons.
I watched it. So if I can say it real fast, some of them have really small parts in it.
Right.
But it's totally cool though when you're watching the movie and just see Felicity Rose just pops up. And there is a scene in this that she's in that I was like, granted, I was a bit high, but I was like crying with laughter. Let's put it that way.
I'll say if I've won,
it looks like one of those movies that you do that the Leonardo DiCaprio like meme thing where like pointing at the screen like, oh yeah.
Actually, one thing that really disappointed me in Terrifier 2 is just that Felicity Rose is only in like one scene. And like, I'm a huge Felicity Rose fan, and I was like, damn it, need more.
Jason, have you ever met you've met Felicity, right?
Oh, many times, yeah. I sat next to her at a screening of Sleepaway Camp.
That's right.
Nice.
She's a gem of a human being. Like she's a really cool person.
Yeah.
Like if you go to a horror convention and you are very introverted, Felicity Rose is not going to let you have a bad time. She's going to want to she's the nicest person and the easily approachable. Like if you're walking by and she knows you glance at her 3 times, she's going to make you take a photo with her.
Right.
Like cool ass lady.
Nice. Another release, Alien Romulus is now on digital and all those other places. So if you missed it in the theater like I did, it's available now for you to watch at home.
Jason and I were big fans of it.
Yeah, I definitely need to see it. Like I said, I need to see it one more time to just kind of, now that my expectations are a little bit more stable, I think I was just so hyped going into it that I want to watch it again to figure out where it's going to be. Because I'm starting to think about my end of year list. So I need to like do it one more time just to get my bearings.
Another movie that's just come out on VOD that I hadn't heard of, but it definitely has my attention. It's a twist on the Alfred Hitchcock movie Rear Window, where like you see something out your window and think there's a murder happening, except for it's a screen life movie. Where it takes place on a computer screen, like with Zoom and all that kind of stuff. Okay. And I like that kind of movie. Like I spend so much time on my computer that I instantly am like sucked into those kind of movies. And so that put those two things together and I'm already interested. It's called 9 Windows, like, nine chat windows in like a Zoom. But yeah, I want to check that one out. Also, American Horror Stories is back with a 5-episode Halloween event, and that's not American Horror Story like the series; it's stories, so it's anthology. It's right there in our wheelhouse. That's on Hulu, and then lastly, a new show will be premiering on Friday, October 18th on Peacock, called Hysteria. That is a satanic panic, like 80s. The kids are listening to metal and it's making them all evil kind of stuff. The big takeaway here, Bruce Campbell's in it. And I love the satanic panic type stuff because I grew up right in the middle of it in an evangelical household. So it's all super interesting to me. And it looks fun because
metalheads aren't evil. We're nice people.
Yeah.
We just like to listen. We just like to think we're evil and cool, but we're not. We're fucking nerds.
I wasn't allowed to watch Smurfs as a kid. Okay, He-Man with his magic. That was no. The problem with He-Man was it was called He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. There's only one Master of the Universe. Yeah. No. I know all this stuff.
It's just funny. It's just funny though. Like I have many friends that are religious, and I talk shit about religion on here, but I have no issue with religion. I have an issue with people that use religion to push terrible beliefs upon people. I don't have any issue with anybody who's religious. I think like faith is a cool thing. Like no matter what you have faith in, like fucking yeah, do it. Like be happy and what you believe in. That's true. Whatever you believe in, that's right. You're right. But I forgot I was going. Is that a point? Oh, but like yeah. But meanwhile, like, your parents like you can't watch Smurfs or can't watch Harry Potter because it's witchcraft. It's like fucking lighten up a little bit. Like it's not gonna.
To be fair, my parents were like barely into that. Like we were very in the evangelical world, but like my parents didn't like put a whole ton of restrictions on me or anything like that. And now they're all like super liberal, and we're all voting for Kamala this year. So.
We'll talk politics on the show, Jody.
I said it wrong. I always say it wrong because I heard so many people in my southern town say it wrong. Kamala.
Well, you know what sucks is there was a wrestler, Kamala, the Ugandan giant. Very in hindsight, very racist character.
Jesus.
But I grew up hearing the word Kamala all the time, so I had to really like think about it before I say her name. So I want to say it right. Like everyone deserves.
I'm the same way.
Right.
Because I hear so many people in my small southern town say it wrong. When my mouth opens, it falls out the wrong way, and I'm like, let me take that back in and say it back again.
Hey,
there's other things I say wrong too. I'm a little.
But Jody, if you said it wrong, no one's holding it against you because we know where your intentions are and your heart is. Some people say it wrong intentionally just to be an asshole.
That's very different.
Right.
Yeah. I also can't say the word oil, so what are we talking about?
I mean, but then again, I called Donald J. Trump Donald Jackass Trump, so I don't know what the fuck. Where the fuck I am. But like again, though, I will say though, like my parents were way different, where they were just like they would just go to work at 7 a.m, and if we saw them before the next morning, that was weird. So I know they knew I was 9, but they had me making my own dinner. Did I ever tell you I was a drug dealer when I was 9 years old?
Yeah, you told us about that. Going across the street.
Okay, I crossed the street to go sell drugs to the guy. I didn't know I was selling drugs. I was just handing him a bag, and he was handing me money back.
Well, you weren't a dealer. You were a mule.
I was a mule. Okay, thank you for clearing that up. I was a mule, but I didn't have to put drugs up my ass, so that was a.
I mean, that's always a benefit, when you don't have
to. So dad advice.
Don't put drugs up your ass.
Don't put drugs up your children's ass. No.
Wait, what? Oh, real fast. We want to just do a little bit more horror news because again, I'm back into comic books. So I'm a fucking nerd. Epitaphs from the Abyss. We're recording this on Wednesday, October 16th. Epitaphs from the Abyss, number 4, just hit today. Also another cool comic book. I haven't read it yet, but I bought it. Night of the Slashers. Just came out, which is a slasher book. Toxic Avenger number 1 just came out. I didn't like the artwork enough to buy it. I hate to say it. I don't like the way they drew Toxie because and not that it was a bad drawing. It's I have in my brain Trauma Toxie.
Right.
But a lot of cool stuff coming out. It's October. A lot of cool stuff coming out in the horror realm. So if you guys like comics, check it out.
I've never played the game, but I saw that there's going to be a Until Dawn movie next year.
Really? I didn't see that. The game was awesome. Yeah, the game is awesome. I think you really enjoy it, Jason. It's really a kind of choose your own adventure. You're playing a movie.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things. I just didn't have a system that played it when it came out.
I'm still mad that I almost 100% of that game. I made one mistake in the whole game, and it's when you have to stay still. So I'm sitting there with my controller in my lap, and my fucking cat, God rest his soul, jumped into my lap and hit the controller. I was like, God damn it. And you can't go back to a previous save. You're just stuck with the decision you made. And it's a fun game though. Did you see RoboCop got an update where you have now New Game Plus?
Well, I thought they had that before.
I don't know. I just updated it recently, so I'm behind.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure that they've had that for a while, but I was actually thinking about replaying that too.
Mortal Kombat just came out with a new patch. The Chaos Reigns new season. Apparently that game's doing a lot of money, which is good. But they also announced Ghostface will be a special character this year, and also the T-1000, Chucky, and a couple more. But one of them was Conan the Barbarian as well.
Oh, that's badass.
So I'm pretty stoked. I like playing through their stories or the tower and seeing their ending story because usually it's really kind of fun how they get to why they're in the Netherrealm fighting in this alternate universe. The only thing I don't like is that Ghostface isn't supernatural, so he would get destroyed by anybody there. But it's just some fucking high school kid with a knife is not going to beat Scorpion. I'm just saying. So I'm really in, but then again, they've always been really good at kind of like retconning that stuff and making it fit, like they did with Freddy, Jason, Leatherface, all that stuff. Like the Homelander ending is really fucking cool. He discovers another realm, spoilers, and decides like, oh, I can just kill people here. This is awesome, and it's a challenge. So, I'm pretty excited to see what they do with all that.
All right.
Now we can do dad advice. I got nothing this week.
I'm just gonna say,
what do you got? Well, dad advice, Joe.
I had to come up with something off the top of my head last week.
No, I was gonna say parenting's hard. Give yourself a break. Give yourself some leniency.
There was one good moment there because the mom at the beginning of Mr. Crocket, the one who's the stepdad got killed. When she gets her kid back at the end of the movie, the mom who saved everybody tells her like, "Hey, like we're all doing our best here. Like, be gentle on yourself. Like, don't blame yourself for all the shit that happened with this evil TV show guy. Like, we're just doing our best. We're all trying. So do give yourself a little grace sometimes."
Yes, that's what I'm trying to get at. Yeah, give yourself a little slack. No one's perfect. I know
Sometimes you're going to get stressed out and do something you're not happy about. Sometimes apologize to your kid and move on. Like,
dude, apologizing
to your kid too. That's worth mentioning.
I would say apologizing to your kid, or just even if you're at work, everyone works and they have that kid that's younger than them. Guess what? Like, they might know their shit and you might make a mistake and have to apologize to them. It's okay. Like, it goes a long way. And I know when I was a kid, at least, no one ever apologized to me for being shitty to me or for anything they did. Like, if they yelled at me for something and it wasn't my fault, I never got an apology. And I definitely missed out on opportunities with my child to do the same thing. And now I try to be very open with that. Like, be like, I fucked up. That's on me. Like, I'm sorry. I think it goes a real big long way. But dude, being a parent is very, very difficult. And I think our jobs as parents, more than anything else, is to try to shield them. And we're slowly but surely trying to chip away at generational trauma. And trying to like look at and this is not a knock on like all of our parents except for mine. Mine really did suck. But I feel like every generation is getting a little better. But I really think like we have this opportunity with the generation that's coming up. People want to talk shit about Gen Z and their work ethic and all this stuff. You want to know what? The reason why Gen Z's work ethic isn't where we want it to be is because it was always ingrained in us that our job is our life. And they're realizing that our job should not be our life. Like, we should have a fulfilling life, and this should be just a means to an end. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that sometimes as older, I don't say we're older. We're like Jody and I are in our 40s, and Jason's only like 63, 64.
Yeah, 64.
But 64. Okay,
we're trying to card to show up.
Well, you get that at 55, so you missed it out by 9 years. But I think sometimes it's easy for us to forget that like this new generation, man, I think they have the best shot at really changing the world for the better when it comes to love for their fellow man. And that's really, really important. And I think as parents, if we can cultivate that and foster that, it's going to go a long way.
Yeah.
We ain't always going to be here, but when I'm 70, I want people to love each other and people to be cool. Like, Black Sabbath has been preaching this since the 70s, and we didn't fucking listen. Children of the Grave is about, like, we need to love each other or we'll all be children of the grave. And that came out before any of us were born, except for Jason. Sorry. I don't even know how old Jason is anymore. I'm sorry.
I put the geezer in Geezer Butler.
You did what? Geezer Butler, like 10 years ago, got in a bar fight in Arizona.
Really?
He got arrested. Yeah.
That's amazing.
I told Kel, like, if I'm ever in Arizona for work and I'm at a bar and Geezer Butler's there and he gets in a bar fight, I said, we're just standing back to back and we're throwing down. Like, I'm like, I got your back, Geezer. We're going to prison together.
But just going back 1 second. One of the best things I think you can do is apologize in front of your kids. Because they model what they do after what they see. And trust me, with my daughter, no matter what, I do something to quote offend her on almost a daily basis. Like, if I didn't put the orange in the right compartment of her lunchbox.
Damn.
Yeah. So, like, sometimes I'm like, okay, well, can you please show me where it should go? And I'll try my best next time to remember. I can't promise. And there's a million one things that kids are hung up on.
What you did right there, Jason, you gave her like it's okay to make mistakes if you own up to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things you learn as an adult is that it's okay to make mistakes, and it's better to own it than try to deny it or lie about it, or underplay it.
It's a good excuse to try to like, if no one ever calls you out on your bullshit or your mistakes, how are you ever going to become a better person? And if you're not willing to accept that you make mistakes, and we're all flawed humans. Like every single one of us in the world is a flawed human. Like no one's perfect. And but I think there's a big difference between people that try to, I have a couple people now, a couple clients that listen to our podcast and have referenced it a couple times. So I can't name a person by name, but there's a person I work with that will just never, they'll make mistakes and they'll just never admit it,
Right.
And never admit their fault. And it's very frustrating because it's like I'm losing respect for you because the fact you have to make a stupid excuse every time you mess up instead of just saying, oh, I did that wrong. It happened. And was like, cool. Yeah, you're right. It happened. No big deal. We just move forward
from it. Right? And like, yeah. Like I'm still learning a ton of things on my new job. Like, and I started back in July. Every day I'm like learning things, and I have like, my OneNote open. I'm just like furiously taking notes or screenshots or videos so I can go back and reference it. So I don't, have to ask too many more times.
Well, that's going to rub off on your kids in a very positive way. Like they're going to get older and hopefully they're going to feel comfortable when they make a mistake coming to you and being like, Dad, I made a mistake. Here's what I did. And here's what to rectify it. I don't know if I've talked about this before. My daughter says cool to talk about, but they one time were at a concert and someone passed them a joint. Weed's legal. I don't give a shit. Like whatever. And they're already 18 or 19 and they took a hit of it and they started feeling really terrible and it was laced with something. But they sat down and talked to me about it, and I was like, that's when I knew I was doing an okay job as a parent because they came openly and wanted to talk to me about it and tell me what happened. And I think when you teach your kids that's okay to make mistakes, as long as you're also okay with the consequences and okay with fessing up to it, it goes a very, very long way into building trust with your kids.
Yeah.
Because when you scream at kids, all they want to do is hide their mistakes from you. Because they don't want to get screamed at. They don't want to get yelled at. And I put it back. I still remember my parents always told me, if you ever go to a party or something, I was in high school, like you can get drunk, just call us, let us know, don't drive home. Cool. The first time I had to do that, my mom screamed at me for 20 minutes on the phone and then screamed at me again when I got home. So I'm like, why the fuck do I ever want to do the right thing? Whereas like I told my child, like, I promise you, I will never do that to you. If you go to a party with someone else and they're too drunk to drive, you call me. If I'm too high to drive, I'll fucking buy an Uber for you. But if you make that right decision, I'm never going to be upset at you. I'm going to be happy that you made the right decision in the moment. And I think that's Jason, what you said, man, I think that's like a perfect way to go about it. Like telling your daughter, like something simple, right? The orange in the wrong spot, but you're like, hey, I'm going to forget. I'm human, but I'll try my best. And please call me out on it. Like goes a long way, dude. It really does.
All right. Well, I think that's enough for tonight.
Is it though? Who wants to talk politics?
No, I'm so sick of politics right now. You have no idea.
I had a Trump canvasser come to my house the other day, and I answered the door like a jackass because I'm stupid. And I answered the door because they stood at my door, and I was like, I wasn't sure if it was a delivery person or not, so I opened the door, and they're like, so the guy goes, how are you doing today? I said, oh man, I'm pretty good. How are you? Because he's not wearing any Trump paraphernalia. And I go, good man, how are you today? So you're doing, I hear, doing whatever. He goes, yeah. He goes, judging by the way you talk, you're definitely, I already know like your answer here. Can I count on you to support Donald Trump? I said, absolutely not. And I was very kind of pissed off by the way he approached that. I wanted to be like, why? Because I don't look like a person of color. Is that why I'm okay? Like, fuck you. And then he had I saw a person in my driveway with Trump signs. They were asking to put them up in people's fucking driveways. And I'm just like, I get you're trying to canvass for who you think is the right politician for the job, but I really hate the mentality, much like this asshole on the airplane of, because you seem like a decent person, you have to align with my political values.
Right.
And when your political values are dog shit, no, we do not align. Because you're a terrible fucking person and I'm not. I'm not great. Right. I'm just okay.
All right. Well, that wraps up another episode. We would really appreciate it if you would give us a rating or review on iTunes, a rating on Spotify, like and subscribe on YouTube, and check us out on TikTok at Dads from the Crypt Talk. And with that, we thank you for listening to Dads from the Crypt.
If you're watching this on YouTube right now, it wasn't through a sponsored link because Jason was like looking at me, shaking his head, like, "Shut the fuck up! I want to promote this, and they're going to deny it again."
I think we're okay not promoting this episode.
You can always tell how well an episode's going by how quickly Jason tries to wrap it up at the end. Like, okay,
I think it went pretty. I think it went pretty well.
Yeah, it was good. It's good stuff.
But you know what?
Right.
I don't want bigots listening. I don't. I'm just saying, I don't give a fuck if you're a bigot. Go kick rocks, dude. Get the fuck out of my fucking podcast.
Jason's just hovering over that button right now, ready to push it.
Yes, I am. And here we go.
Follow Dads from the Crypt on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or I will follow you to the grave. No, seriously, you really should watch. But be careful what you ask for. You may get it.